If you're a small Shopify merchant, you've never done TV, and you don't even have $20,000, this is the way to start, because all that traffic you've built over time, we can help you create those targetable segments and run TV as if you're a big player, but really at the tune of a few $100s per day. And it will work. And when that works, then we'll take you, maybe with a slightly higher budget, into what I would call prospecting, generating demand.
You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
This episode is brought to you by TDO, the highest rated live chat software on Shopify. Now, TDO helps Shopify merchants to gain and retain more customers with personalized shopping experiences. Now, with TDO, you can recommend products and offer discounts based on the user's behavior and their order history without leaving the chat widget. Now, TDO also takes the pressure off your support team, and the app really enables you to manage all of your communication channels from one dashboard, and literally it can automate up to 47% of your recurring questions. So it's pretty amazing with a great time saver. You can increase your customer satisfaction and sales with personalized shopping experiences. You can learn more by visiting tdo.com/fastlane. That's TIDIO.com/fastlane. And there you can start a TDO Premium Edition with an exclusive discount for E-commerce Fastlane listeners only. So make sure you punch in the special code Fastlane when you check out. Welcome back to E-commerce Fastlane. I'm your host, Steve Hutt. And with plenty of podcast choices for founders and for marketers in e-commerce, retail, and even the direct-to-consumer space, I really appreciate the fact that you're taking time and listening to the show today. I release new episodes. They come out twice weekly from all your favorite podcast apps like Apple, Spotify, and Google. We're also now available on Amazon Music and on YouTube. So if you consume your podcasts on those platforms, you can go check them out. I appreciate the like and the follow there. Also, to get the full value of this interview today, it's great that you would click through from whatever podcast app of choice, and that will bring you over to the show notes over at ecommercefastlane.com, and there'll be links and resources that we mentioned today. Now, today's episode, my guest is Philip, who's the CEO and co-founder of a company called Tatari, and they're at tatari.tv. Now, Tatari really isn't your typical ad tech platform. They really are a game changer for marketers who are results-oriented with a special focus on TV advertising. They've literally taken the complexity. I know I had you on the show before, but they take the complexity out of TV advertising. They make it very straightforward by placing ads, exactly like placing ads on Google and Facebook. It's so interesting. Tatari will allow you to control any TV advertising, the buying, the measuring of your ads across both streaming and traditional television, which is very unique. Well, this is really cool. They made it super easy too for both Shopify stores, really because they have a Shopify app, so it connects directly to your store and you can get involved right away. Their platform lets you, the marketer, really to use data to create and test advertising plans on both online. It really is amazing. I just love the fact that with Tatari, you're able to measure everything all in one place. I think that's what's really exciting about this whole thing. And think about some of the main metrics that are important. Cost per view or cost per acquisition. And at the end of the day, it really is about the ROAS. Is TV an effective advertising medium? The answer is yes. There just appears to be a lot of complexity. That's where Tatari comes in and actually can really help you out. So, hello, Philip. Welcome again to E-commerce Fastlane.
Hi, Steve. Thank you for having me back. And I was just going to kind of complete your words. It's not that we make it easy. We actually also make TV advertising work for Shopify merchants. So kind of that notion of effectiveness is very much there too.
Absolutely. That's a nice connection with the Shopify app. And I know we're going to unpack that a bit. That's what we chatted about. Gosh, I think I had you on September 21. It was quite a while ago that I had you on for the first time.
Yeah, it feels like a decade ago. So much has changed, for all of us, not just work-wise, but I think and our personal lives as well post-COVID.
Absolutely. I mentioned a little bit at the top of the show here, but let's talk more on a high level first. I'd love to hear it from your own words as a founder and building this thing. And you got a large team now, and things are really starting to scale up for you from the TV side of things. So just would love to understand some of these problems just on a high level first for Shopify brands and TV advertising.
Yeah, good. It's always nice to set a little bit of the context, right? I mean, look, at a high level, Shopify merchants, typically kind of the smaller retailers, are here and they want to build their business, drive sales. And part of this is doing advertising, doing customer acquisition. And the digital world has made it a lot easier in the last 10, 20 years, right? There's Google Ads, there's Facebook campaigns. And these are things that we can all set up on our own. As Shopify merchants, we actually get very sophisticated at it. But ultimately, to truly grow and scale, we need to look into other marketing channels.
Right.
TV advertising is one of them. It's not the only one, right? Mm-hmm. There's out of home, there's radio. Obviously, at Tatari, we very much focus on the world of TV advertising. I always say we're a single sharp blade, but focus on TV advertising, then again, in the broadest sense, right? You mentioned linear and streaming, right. But it's also about national versus local, targeted versus untargeted campaigns. And so we're here. We're here to help Shopify merchants grow and scale their business in a channel that has been kind of suffering a little bit from opaqueness, mystery, and obviously the agencies, the traditional agencies are often to blame for that, the TV agencies.
So the linear TV, I know we talked about the first time you were on. So linear versus streaming, can you just make sure, as I think some people may not quite completely understand, if it's the physical coax cable is the linear TV versus streaming would be more of a smart television?
Yeah, good. And by the way, even that definition is becoming blurry for me, so bear with me.
Okay.
But so at a high level, linear will typically refer to television experiences via cable,
right?
Say the Discovery Channel, broadcast TV, say ABC, or satellite, right? So if somebody has a Dish or a DirecTV subscription. Streaming TV are often referred to as these OTT and CTV experiences, right? Okay. OTT, it's a subscription to Hulu. And now it's delivered via an IP signal to my flat screen in the television room. CTV is kind of the hardware component to it. I may have, for example, me personally, I have multiple Roku-enabled TVs at home. So that's the traditional definition, distinction. It goes without saying, it gets very blurry, right? Mm-hmm. Because anybody who's watching Thursday Night Football on Amazon, is that linear or streaming, right? Obviously,
that's a good point.
It follows the path of a traditional streaming definition.
Right.
Might get it via my Amazon Fire TV device delivered with IP technology. But then again, we all watch it at the same time, just as if it were cable and broadcast. So it's a rhetorical question. But look, cable, broadcast, satellite as linear, CTV and OTT experiences as streaming. That's how we define it.
Perfect.
And by the way, they're both important. Uh-huh. I think as little as 2-3 years ago, streaming TV was a little bit of an accessory to linear TV. Mm-hmm. And that's changing very fast. I think most of us listeners on this may watch more streaming TV already than the traditional linear experiences.
Yeah.
And so change is good. Change creates opportunity, but also means that we need to lean into it. And obviously, this is one of the things that Tatari will be very proud of.
Yeah, this is lovely. Thanks for sharing that context of those differences. I think that's kind of important. It's interesting how those lines are blurred. One thing I've noticed too recently, since the last time I had you on, was that I think you have a self-serve offering now. I'd like to understand a little more about how can brands actually bring their TV advertising in-house? Can you tell us a little more about this self-serve model or self-serve platform you have?
Oh man, watch me go into the abyss. I mean, obviously it's something we're incredibly proud of because It's something that hasn't really been done before in the world of TV advertising, unlike digital.
Right.
And so taking a few steps back, TV advertising for most brands comes across as very difficult, and there's kind of the need to have an agency. And with that has been this yearning feeling by brands, small and large, to have the ability to take TV advertising in-house. And we just made that happen in the last, since Tatari was started, but then really by focusing on it in the last 2+ years.
Right.
And so brands can now run their TV campaigns without having to talk to us or an agency. But ultimately, they get a tool, it's a platform, they log in, they can look at any type of TV inventory, national, local, targeted, untargeted, linear versus streaming. They can learn about that inventory, like the price, They might get to see kind of who watches the types of programs that are on it. And then they can build plans. And these are very intelligent plans. These are plans that have elements of data science. For example, if I buy a spot on ABC or on Hulu, we may be able to tell the potential performance of it. What will it do for me? But there's also very deep levels of machine learning. In-house kind of comes with the notion of self-serve and having to do work. Well, I think ChatGPT has shown to us that at many tasks, computers can do a better job than us human beings.
Yeah.
And so we obviously have all of that part of it. So it's just fantastic. 1 out of 2 brands, and that's whether it's large or small, that, as we say, joins Tatari, i.e. they embark on their first TV campaign with Tatari, will do so in-house using our tools and technology. For the smaller brands, and I say this in the most affectionate way because what we love nothing more than taking small brands and making them big with TV, that would be 100%. They just love to take control. They want the transparency. What we observe, Steve, is that those brands that use the Tatari platform to take TV advertising in-house, I hate to admit to it, but they actually become better TV advertisers than we are. But if you think it through, that's not a surprise, right?
Yeah.
Because the better AdWords campaign managers, the better Facebook campaign managers, they don't work at Google or Facebook. They work at the companies that we work with, right? The Bobbies or the Manscapes of this world. Now, having said that, there's always still an element of service for those who want it. And we like to think we do a good job at it. So it's full spectrum.
That's lovely. So one thing I've noticed too is that I think there are, and I've recommended Tatari to quite a few brands that maybe have not dipped their toe, so to speak, kind of in the TV advertising pool. But now with a self-serve model, it makes it easier. And you're right, they're closer to the fold because they know the products. They already do traditional advertising, either on Facebook and Google and TikTok and other places. So they kind of get the creative and they understand a lot of that stuff. So, but there are some first-time TV advertisers out there. And so I'm curious from your perspective, like, is this a good time in this economic climate right now to maybe want to shift into TV advertising and at least test it?
The short answer is capital, yes.
Okay.
Look, often in the press we read about the death of certain marketing channels, and for some reason, for a while, TV kind of was like dragged into this, but it's actually quite the opposite. TV is alive and kicking more than ever before. The number of viewing hours on TV is going up. And I'm saying this on top of my head, but I believe that the average American watches 3 hours of TV daily. That's a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah.
If you pay attention to what we can watch today, the variety of these programs is infinitely better than as little as 5 years ago. I believe 5 years ago, we had 100 new scripted TV shows per year. Now we have something like 800, right? So the devices are better. And so people watch a lot of TV. People are very acceptant to TV advertising, unlit, say, an excess of ads in my TikTok feed. And so it creates this wonderful experiences innate to the platform. And so with everything else going on, especially in the digital world where CPMs are creeping up, there are privacy setbacks, whether it's from a kind of a policy setting, say Apple, or regulatory settings, say the government. We don't really have those, or we don't really face those issues in TV. And above all, when TV advertising used to be a big budget brand privilege, right? You had to have millions of dollars to make that first commercial and to have that first airing. We have many brands that will now make their first TV commercial for a mere $100. Calm, who's a Tatari TV advertiser, made it for $200. I believe, I'm trying to see who else had something for just a few $1,000s. But also the buying price for TV is much lower. It's not millions of dollars. The vast majority of brands that start working with Tatari will start with less than $100,000, sometimes as little as $20,000. So it's truly democratized. And I will kind of take it one step further of how you articulated it. Any brand should be on TV today. If you're on Google or Facebook or any social media, you should at the same time be on TV because it is kind of same level platform.
So it's interesting about what's happened since 21. because I know the last time I spoke to you, it seemed that maybe the sweet spot, and I think that's part of the self-serve model you have now, the sweet spot seemed to be, I know you said big brand privilege, that was not where Tatari fit into the equation, but there still was a reasonable amount of investment to want to test out TV advertising. So where are we at today? I know you threw out a few numbers there because I think we have a lot of range of people listening today. We have a larger enterprise people that are listening to the show. We have a lot of early stage people that are still on Shopify Core trying to get some traction, but they're like, hey, is this another channel opportunity for me? So maybe you can just kind of put it in perspective of cost of production to actually create the ad is one cost, either maybe with an influencer or someone's already great with you. And then there's the cost of the media side of it. So I just want to figure out like where people might fit into the mix today.
Yeah, sure. Let's unpack those. And let's start with the creative. I mean, when I did my first TV advertising campaign a decade ago, we spent over $250,000 on that creative. And I always say as a joke, a lot of emotional capital because we couldn't agree on what the right commercial was.
Yeah.
The tools that we have available today, whether it's from kind of, shooting the video to editing the video, in many cases, it's free. Many companies have enjoyed TV campaigns and commercials with iPhone shot videos. And so if you look at Dave, that was the company, Dave.com, right? They just made their own creative for $2,000. And that just works. By the way, a lot of brands will actually already have those videos, or at least the raw material, Steve, right? From TikTok campaigns, from Facebook video campaigns. And I'd say, right, start there. It is enough, right?
Yeah.
It definitely is enough if you then compare it with kind of the second component to it, the media commitment, right? By lack of measurement, the only way in which you could see some visible impact of your TV campaign 10 years ago was, well, literally by throwing a lot of spaghetti on the wall. Right? You just wouldn't know what works. And if you just throw enough money at it, eventually it will. It couldn't be any different today. Obviously, yes, we apply a great dose of targeting, but also on a next day basis with the Tatari measurement, we can see what works or doesn't work. And that means that you can kind of edge yourself at maybe with 20,000, right?
Yeah.
And pay attention. And in the most simplistic way, maybe half of it will drive an outcome, say a sale, and the other half doesn't. Well, then you double down on the things that work and vice versa. And so it doesn't take long for brands to build and grow from there. Literally, tenfolding budgets over as little as 2 or 3 months, effectively.
So one thing I want to chat about now is about the app itself and your involvement, I think, with the Plus kind of certified app program. Because being with Shopify for so many years, one of the things that I found was that it was easier to want to recommend these 120-ish Plus certified app partners because they have the reliability and the scale and the data privacy and all. There's a whole laundry list of craziness, which you likely know about that process. So can you talk a little bit about how Tatari fits into that world now of Plus certified app partner? And then what does that bring for a user now of your Shopify app?
So I'll answer this in 2 pieces. And I'll start with the first part, why we're there. As I alluded earlier, any good TV campaign is paired with great measurement, Steve. And so whatever the campaign is that we do, we want to make sure that we give the brand an understanding of what works or doesn't work. To do so, we must get data from the brand. We must see what type of visitors they've had, how many sales that they drove. And so we must kind of get their data out of them. And we can do so with pixel technology, server-to-server technology, or in this case, if you're a Shopify-enabled merchant, then you just install the Tatari app on Shopify, and within seconds, all that data comes to us. So it makes it incredibly easy, incredibly seamless for anybody who wants to get on TV. No technical means needed. Just install the Tatari app on Shopify, and that's it. We enjoyed an incredible success, from brands embracing it to reviews in the App Store. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can check that out. And I don't think that went unnoticed for Shopify, which then led to this PCAP certification. But it sounds like you had another question around that. So let me pause here.
Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at TDO. It's TIDIO.com. And they're the highest rated live chat software on Shopify. Literally, you can increase your customer satisfaction and sales with personalized shopping experiences. You can learn a lot more by heading on over to tdo.com/fastlane, and you can start right away with a premium version. It's exclusively available on a special discount for e-commerce Fastlane listeners. You can check them out there, tdo.com/fastlane, and use the promo code Fastlane. What's interesting, though, is that I think it makes it easier for discoverability. I think no matter if you are a Shopify Plus brand or not, it always seems, and I think that's probably the intentional work you put to become Plus certified, was that we work for everybody. We are agnostic if you're on Core or Plus or Headless, whatever you're doing, and just using our checkout. All of that is fine. But the idea is that I think it just adds a lot of credibility and trust in the fact that they've been pre-vetted by Shopify. So no matter where you are in your journey and platform you're on, it's a great choice.
Yeah. Hey, if I can toot our own horn a little bit, as I said, Shopify noticed our success. We got in contact. And yeah, they did put us through the ringer, right? I mean, you mentioned kind of like how does technology work, privacy and stuff like that.
Yep.
But we were rewarded with this Shopify Plus certified app certification. And if I may say so, we were the first TV advertising technology company to be there. By the way, we're still the only one out there.
Yeah, I'm looking right now.
Very proud of that. And I still feel that we're in the first minute of a 24-hour day. Right, there's so much more to come, especially if we then pair this entire instrumentation to that self-serve or in-house platform that we talked about earlier. Any Shopify merchant that has, let's say a growth manager or the owner has been dabbling around in all these digital channels. It's really not hard to dabble around in TV advertising with Tatari today in small doses, right? Yeah. With a quick feedback loop.
And I know we're going to unpack a few stories in a few minutes. I think what's interesting to me, I think we're all suckers for a good story. I just feel that it just teaches us things. It gives us that extra little push, I think, to saying, hey, maybe you should go and try something new because these guys did it. And I know we kind of prepared a few potentials. So any stories or case studies that are kind of top of mind that we can talk publicly, if you share their name or not, but I just would like to understand just the fact that they dipped their toes in the world of TV advertising where they didn't prior because of Tatari's technology. I'm just trying to understand what inspired them to want to try it. And then what happened on the other end? Is there any kind of success metrics that we can talk about?
Yeah, for sure. And so ultimately, the reason brands come to us and why they want to try it is because they kind of max out on those digital customer acquisition channels.
Ah, okay.
Where do you grow from here? And so show the Tatari platform, as I mentioned earlier, kind of will make TV look and feel more like digital, less than TV. And then we'll tease them in. And maybe we'll take some of the existing videos that they have from TikTok and off we go with maybe $10,000 in that first week. And we'll start paying attention to what it does. Generally, we refer to this as an outcome measurement. For a lot of merchants, that is visitors to the sites or a step further down. Do those visitors then actually purchase? Because it turns out that people that bother to react to the TV commercial, right, take their phone, navigate to the site, while they're often a little bit more higher qualified as potential purchasers. And so we can measure this, right? We measure this with metrics like cost per visitor, customer acquisition cost, ROAS, as you refer to later, right? Return on ad spend. And so if you find success in that first $10,000, and these are some real numbers from a client, I don't think I'm allowed to say their name, but they literally went from $10,000 per week to $50,000 per week in a mere 2 months, right? Okay. And then, by the way, they compare those results with their Facebook campaigns and their Facebook metrics. And they make sure that TV kind of outperforms Facebook so that they can take a little bit of budget out of Facebook and say, put it in TV. And ultimately, we go kind of from that direct response to brand. And that's a whole other conversation. So I'll just pause here.
Right. And that makes complete sense. One thing that I found interesting, and I think I recall us chatting about this on our previous recording, was that there's going to be users who are going to take you up on the offer. They're going to 10, 20,000. They're going to run a little quick campaign just to check something out, just to kind of see where they're at. And they have existing creative because they've got success already on TikTok and others, and YouTube channel, whatever they have. But what I find interesting is that just this multi-channel world we're in right now, the reality is that they may not go directly from their phone based on an ad they've seen on TV that's been powered thanks to Tatari.
Yep.
But what they might do later on their desktop or somewhere else later, is there an opportunity still to saying, hey, we know that you paid for an ad on this channel at this time, and it cost X number of dollars, and there was instant lift and conversions of traffic and some different things that are happening there.
Mm-hmm.
What happens, are you able to run, is this a separate piece of technology with pixels firing to say, okay, now we want to do web retargeting of paid ads on television that have not converted yet? I'd like to unpack that a bit.
Yeah. So we can kind of go in two directions, right? There's people who see an ad on TV and they don't react immediately, right? Mm-hmm. When's the last time you bought a new car after 35 minutes of seeing an ad, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And there's kind of this concept of retargeting on the web. But by the way, Steve, also retargeting on TV. And that's kind of next level. So let's unpack this and let's start with the first piece first. Tecovas. Tecovas used to be a small Shopify merchant, not so much anymore.
No.
They, by the way, for those who don't know Tecovas, highly recommend authentic, genuine leather cowboy boots. I'm Belgian. Yeah. I wear Tecovas, right? Yeah. And so they're great. And so they started with us on TV, small doses, and eventually kind of dabbled into bigger programs like Yellowstone, right? And so, yes, it drove a lot of awareness, but without, let's say, that immediate return. But next time when people do shop for cowboy boots, well, there's an unconscious connection they make back to Tecovas because they remember it from seeing it on that show. Or if they see it in a store, but Tecovas has its own store. But of course, kind of that halo effect kicks in, right? And this is kind of the brand strength of TV. Once you hit a larger budget, the conversion from TV doesn't happen immediately anymore. It happens in other channels. And so we often have these small brands as they start dabbling into kind of building reach and awareness, i.e. brand, they'll come to us and say oh, it's amazing. Or search performance or search campaigns are doing so much better. We really got it fine-tuned. That's the halo of TV that kicks in, right? Or click-through rates in Facebook are going in. That's the halo of TV again. Or organic traffic is up. That's the halo again. And so obviously that's a little further down the road. That's not the place to start. Right. But it's kind of the beautiful thing that TV has, unlike other marketing channels. That's part one.
Yeah.
Now let's look at part two. You described maybe somebody seeing an ad on TV and then you can retarget them in digital. Yes, you can do that. What I find even more interesting, and it is, by the way, the lowest entry point to TV, is that if you have amassed a lot of traffic already during the course of running your business, and you have amassed that traffic organically or from search or social media, there is the ability, Steve, with laser precision to run an ad again in front of those people on their flat screen TV.
Oh.
You can single-handedly pick them out. You may have that ad run in a really big NFL game, right, where you kind of get that, you look very big as a small brand, right? Because all of a sudden you're kind of paired with the Geicos of this world. And so Manscaped, which is another Shopify merchant, is a great example of that. They drove a lot of kind of traffic and awareness to their site. By the way, a lot of it with cheap, untargeted linear cable and broadcast TV. And then in its next move, they went in with high precision. Anybody who had reacted to those untargeted ads, they went after them again and showed them Manscaped a few more times. Only those people saw it, no wasted spend. The conversion, the metrics on that retargeting on TV is unheard of. We literally saw their sales volume increase with more than 30%, whilst the CPAs themselves, kind of the customer acquisition costs, went down with more than 50%. So it is, by the way, if you're a small Shopify merchant, you've never done TV, and you don't even have $20,000, this is the way to start. Because all that traffic you've built over time, we can help you create those targetable segments and run TV as if you were a big player, but really at the tune of a few $100s per day. And it will work. And when that works, then we'll take you, maybe with a slightly higher budget, into what I would call prospecting, generating demand. For what it's worth, by the way, we have a lot of TV advertisers, as you can tell, who are new to TV. That's the vast majority of our clients. The success rate on a pilot campaign is close to 90%.
So it really is a no-brainer for those with a reasonable budget, wanting to, as you said, if you're at a point in the career of your business that you're almost maxing out other digital channels where Facebook, Google, TikTok, others can't find you net new customers by just throwing more money at it, then that's where TV fits in.
Absolutely, but possibly earlier as well. If you think about retargeting, if you can buy into my hypothesis that, look, TV is a worthy equal channel to kind of, search or social media. We have had clients who, never were on social media and they just decided to go straight for TV and it worked.
What about mature brands? I know I mentioned it kind of earlier on, but there's going to be mature brands that are listening today that maybe are already advertising on TV.
Of course.
With, quote unquote, the agency world doing their big budget things. I'm just thinking Dr. Squatch, the soap company, and others. I have funny suspicion that they likely have an agency doing their thing.
They actually don't. This is
don't?
very funny. No, they work with Tatari. They do all of their TV. Yeah, see, no. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, that's fine. But so let's talk about that, because I think there are, like I said, mature brands, agency world, maybe not the Dr. Squatch of the world, but others like that are $300, $400, $500 million brands that know the benefits of TV because they're doing the agency thing. What happens when you kind of recommend or are learning today that, hey, are there cost savings or is there a way of using these both in tandem? That's what I want to understand first.
You mean agency and Tatari?
Yeah, I wonder if there's an opportunity there.
Yeah. So that's a very astute observation, I would say. Look, if as a brand, the only thing you want to do is TV advertising, then you can just work with Tatari and you'll be very happy. Now, agencies do have an important role for brands, right? Because agencies can help with the overall kind of strategy and planning of a marketing campaign. They can take that holistic position across all the channels. And remember what I said earlier, possibly to our detriment, we're a single sharp blade. We just do TV advertising. And so we do have many brands that will come to it, even big ones, say TransUnion. They already have an agency. In this case, that's W Promote. Now, we're not going to replace W Promote. If anything, we'll give W Promote as an agency, by the way, a much bigger company or more powerful company than Tatari. We'll give them all the tools to set up a world-class TV advertising campaign for the brand. And so we are agnostic because we must understand that agencies play an important role for brands.
Well, that's good. And I think there's an education process too that goes along with that, where you're enabling these agencies that have a traditional model of however, and relationships and shaking hands versus programmatic data and analytics and then proper retargeting and using some technology now around. So that almost enhances their offering for even new clients.
It does. For agencies, look, if you're an agency and you haven't really gotten into the world of TV advertising, it's difficult, right? I mean, the technology, as I described it earlier, just the data that it takes, the infrastructure that it takes to be successful is not something you can build overnight. And so in those cases, you're much better off to license it from a company like Tatari. Look, I'm not sure if this is appropriate for this show, but agencies who license the Trade Desk today, and that's virtually every agency, they need to license Tatari as well, because obviously we, on top of the Trade Desk, we can now offer linear experiences. We can offer measurement and stuff like that.
Right.
Having said that, there's still a lot of big brands there, the Fortune 200 or 500 companies who really do want to take TV advertising in-house, right? Because they run budgets so large that they just can't afford the people to assume control. And so we'll have big brands like The Hartford or Weight Watchers who have embraced Tatari to the detriment a little bit of the agency there because they really want it in-house. So that happens too, but that's really for the big brands.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. So I'm going to make sure that I link up a lot of the stuff because you really do have an opportunity, both mostly from this show, I would say more on the brand side, but I think there's going to be some spillover effect both on the agency side, potentially even on the publisher side of saying, hey, there's TV opportunities here. There's technology to do this sort of thing. There's ridiculous amounts of case studies and resources that I know are on Tatari.tv. So I'm going to make sure I link a lot of this up in the show notes because I think that's kind of the next step. And that's what I was going to kind of ask you. I think you've really put the icing on the cake that really is from what I'm learning is that we have a self-serve option. We really service people that have not maxed out their advertising budgets yet. They want to experiment into other channels with 3 hours of daily TV viewing time. And the fact that, as you said, like Hulu and Roku and other smart televisions and linear TV are all accessible through Tatari. It's very interesting, and it almost feels that if you don't test it, you're actually doing yourself a disservice with it. You said a 90% kind of success rate. You need to try it is kind of what I'm learning out of this recording today.
Absolutely. And with the added notion that you can try it with limited means. If you fall in that 10% of failure, you haven't lost your shirt.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, and that's excellent. So I guess what I'll do is I'll make sure, like I said, I'll link everything up in the show notes today. So it'll be at tatari.tv. And I've noticed too, there are quite a few other case studies and a really great blog, actually, by the way. I know I subscribe to. I think I've used the RSS feed on your blog. I think I'm even publishing it on e-commerce Fastlane. It's great. I mean, it's nice to spread the wealth around about the great content you're producing and the market that you serve. And congrats on the Plus certification.
Thank you.
Any kind of parting words for those listening today and saying, hey, what are people getting out of this recording today? And then kind of what do you want them to do now as the next steps?
Look, it's maybe a little repetitive, but it sounds maybe weird to hear it come from me, but TV advertising doesn't deserve the aura that it has enjoyed over the last decade.
Okay.
I want everybody to look at it as if it were another digital channel with sophistication and opportunities. And it's exciting. It's exciting because we make it work. It's exciting because there's lots of new things happening. Netflix, Disney Plus, right?
Yep.
So it's so much more to come. And we have a great blog. If you don't want to talk to us, then just read our materials and become smart. That's all good.
And then you can go to the Shopify App Store, apps.shopify.com.
I wasn't going to sell, but that's right. Yeah.
Self-serve. That's the way to do it. Add the app, get it installed. It'll ingest your site in through the app. And then from there, you have an opportunity to have Tatari kind of running and get a campaign started. And I'm sure there's some customer success people kind of within your organization that can kind of do a little bit of hold handing at the beginning, just saying, hey, I know it's a self-serve option, but maybe there's some people say, hey, I need a little extra help. What does great look like once I add this thing on? And maybe holding some hands, white glove-ish, to find success out of their first campaign.
That's right. I feel like we have a third episode already in the workings, Now I'm on TV. How do I make it even work better?
Yeah. Exactly. Well, Philip, thanks again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. The fact that you really are doubling down. And I know you're saying, hey, that, I don't know what the actual language you wrote about the sharpened blade. And you're kind of, you're not a Swiss Army knife. You're very clearly kind of in your lane. And I really appreciate that. I know you're deeply committed to really wanting to help brands to, I don't know, I'd say maybe streamline operations or boost their profits through TV. I think it's amazing that that's kind of where you're putting your flag in the sand. I just wanted to thank you for coming on the show, sharing your vision. I'm especially grateful the fact that you're dedicated to the Shopify community. I think there's lots of learnings here. There's some people listening today that may not be ready for TV because that's not in their budget yet. But the seed is planted, the halo effect you talked about, that Tatari is here when you're ready, and it's a nominal budget. And I just want to thank you for, first of all, pushing through. And I wish you tremendous success moving into the future.
Oh, cheers, man. That's so kind of you to say.
Okay. All right. Have yourself a great afternoon. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.